When I want to hear the true heartbeat of country music, I listen to two voices singing in harmony. It's the sadness and the tension in those voices that really gets to me. And that's something that's unique to country music, something you won't hear as strong anywhere else.
Golden rain, with one tiny little stone shining green. Now at last it's found a home by itself. It's just a cold metallic thing. Only love can make a golden wedding ring.
There's something about two magic voices. If they're right together, they're really right together.
It's better than biting into the best piece of chicken you ever had in your life, you know? I mean, it's like, it's greater it's greater than eating my mom's biscuits and gravy, you know?
Oh, you can say no.
It's better than catfish. It's better than pinto beans and cornbread.
Love thy neighbor as thyself. Do unto him as you have him do to you. Everything that you can do without to help him live. Love thy neighbor as thyself, and he will love you too.
Good harmony makes the hair stand out on my arms and neck, and it makes something inside me bubble. One of these days, I think when I'm listening to something that's really great, I might just blow up. It's dark and it's raining and I've gotta go home. Gotta go home, boys, gotta go home. Dark and it's raining and I've gotta go home. And I'm on my long journey home. Lost all my money but a $2 bill. $2 bill, boys, $2 bill. Lost all my money but a $2 bill. All the black folks are rising and it surely is a train. Surely is a train, boy, surely is a train. Black folks are rising and it surely is a train. And I'm on my long journey home. Lost all my money but a $2 bill. $2 bill, boy, $2 bill. Lost all my money but a $2 bill. I'm on my long journey home. Oh, come on, get hot now.
The brother duets have been going strong for years. There were so many of them, it'd be like taking you all into an Aladdin's cave. The Armstrong twins, Floyd and Lloyd, the Buchanan brothers, Chester and Lester, the Nevis brothers, Ben and Glenn, the Mazes, Budge and Fudge, the Beatty brothers, Stanley brothers, Callahans, Bales, Lillys, Osborns, Wilburns, Statlers, Gatlins, the list goes on and on. But the Delmore brothers, the Monroe brothers and the Blue Sky Boys are my personal chart toppers.
Alabama, your beautiful sunlight, your field of cerise, potatoes and corn. Alabama, your crimson red clover, all mingled around the old place I was born.
The Blue Sky Boys made no bones about the fact that most of their repertoire was sentimental heart songs. Somebody once asked them why they sang so many old soulful songs on the radio, and their response was very simple. They said, because that's what most of the people write in and want.
Alabama, so sweet in the springtime, sweet ferns and wildflowers and winter with snow.
I've spoke to the two of them at separate times, and they are very nice people until you bring up the other one's name. So they'll just tell you, I don't want to talk about it. And they really don't even want you to say how much you enjoyed the Blue Sky Boys. That don't light their fire at all. So it was hard for me to know what to talk about not knowing them personally, you know, all I had to talk about was their music. And it didn't thrill them to talk about their music because that was done when they were together, and we don't do that anymore.
I'm just a poor ex-soldier that's broken down and blue. I fought out in the Great World War for the old red, white, and blue.
Bill and Charlie Monroe came from right here in Kentucky and sang the high, lonesome mountain sound, with Bill's high tenor reaching way up into the skies. And although they sang in harmony, the pressures of life got through to them, and they fussed, and they fought, and they fell out.
One wife would tell the other brother's wife, so-and-so said that the next time you did this or that, well, he is going to knock your head off. So that when Bill would get out of bed at night when his wife would tell him something like that and get his ball bat and go to Charlie's house. He'd stand out in the front yard and invite him out. And of course Charlie would get his ball bat and they literally would fight with the ball bats. And that's what finally broke them up.
They called us wandering boys, asking for shelter and bread. Although we fought in no man's land, and a many poor boy is dead. So listen to my story and lend a helping hand to poor forgotten soldier boys who fought to save our land.
The difference with the Delmore brothers was that they took the blues and sang them in harmony.
Blues, stay away from me. Blues, why don't you let me be? Don't know why you keep on haunting me. Life is full of misery. Dreams don't mean a thing to me. Time goes by and still I can't be free.
Well, when Dad and them first got started, one of the things that made them in demand at the time is that they were some of the best at working a radio mic that people had ever at the time had heard, simply because they could sing into the mic and it was soft. And they could really, well, what we call mix it down.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, they didn't have any mixing boards, and they just had one mic. And they could work that mic to the point where that they reached a level that really impressed engineers and so on. And their music came over the air a lot plainer and clearer, along with their guitars, just simply because of their styles.
Hard luck, Papa can't stand his ground. He was a good Papa, but he done gone down. Lord, Lord, got them brown fairy blues. Hard luck, Papa standing in the rain. If the world was corn, he couldn't buy grain. Lord, Lord, got them brown fairy blues.
There's never been a duet that was more together than the Delmores. Yes, they thought, breathed at the same time, spoke their words identical. It just sounded like one man doing the part, and you used some kind of device to force the other voice to be in there, but they didn't. They never was behind or missed a word. They were strictly a together duet.
The old maid done lost his style. If you want to be lucky, you got to smile. Lord, Lord, got them brown fairy blues.
One morning, they had a real early morning radio program, and they left the house usually around 3 or 3:30. And one morning, Dad just asked Rape to get his guitar, and Rape said, "Get your own guitar." Dad said, "I said, get my guitar." The next thing I do, they were duking it out. They didn't make the program. And I mean, you know, it was just like a brother thing. Don't tell me what to do. But brothers, it's like families, and they had their own difficulties getting along. maybe more so than, say, if it were a group of people non-related.
There's a marvelous story that Roy Acuff tells about a time that he was introducing the Delmores on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, and he was talking about how much they liked each other and got along with each other and how close they were. And as he said this, he glanced over to the side and he could see the two of them throttling each other on the edge of the stage. And he finally called them on stage, and when he did, they immediately just stopped, got very, very affectionate, walked down the stage smiling as if nothing had ever happened.
I'll do another old song now. This is originally done by the Delmore Brothers, called Gonna Lay Down My Old Guitar.
Gonna lay down my old guitar. Gonna lay down my old guitar. Oh, I wish I could tie it to my side and take it along with me. There's no one to cry for me. There's no one to cry for me. I've wandered away so far, don't you see? There's no one to cry for me.
Jeff had an old Delmore Brothers tape, and we were listening to some songs, and you know, we just started singing them and messing around, and right away it just seemed like something that came natural to us, you know, so it made it easy to get into.
They were what we were listening to when we hooked up. But, you know, we'd listen to stuff prior to them. But it was real simultaneous to us trying to work up material that I had this Delmore tape, and we were interested in that.
Gonna lay down my old guitar. Gonna lay down my old guitar. Oh, I wish I could tie it to my side and take it along with me.
One of the Delmore brothers was, for all intents and purposes, if not officially, a preacher. And the other brother was really a professional drinker. And the old story goes they were traveling, and one of the two, and I don't recall, had taken very drunk. And they stopped the car for whatever reason, got off the side of the road, and the one who had taken commode hugging drunk fell down a ravine. And so the other brother, the preacher brother, ran down to help him and rescue him. And he got down there with him in this ravine and started praying, God, please help my brother. He's drunk. And the brother looked up and said, oh, no, don't tell him I'm drunk. Tell him I'm sick.
I wandered again to my home in the mountains, where in youth's early dawn I was happy and great. I looked for my friend, but I never could find him.
My most influence has got to be the Stanley Brothers. They just had a sound that was so haunting and so mountain sounding, so Appalachian sounding. And there's such a difference between Bill Monroe's tenor singing and Ralph Stanley's tenor singing. And Ralph is such a lonesome singer, you know.
Everybody I met seemed to be a rank stranger.
When Ralph Stanley comes to town here, into Nashville, he comes down to a little place called the Station Inn. And if I'm not working, if I can get down there at all, I'll go down and sing with him, and I'll just stand up there and sing tenor, you know, or sing lead and let him sing tenor, you know, and it's just the most fun in the world. And it's like I don't want anybody else to sing with us. I just want to have that moment for me, you know. She's there at the bar every evening, face powdered, her cheeks painted red. Her beauty has faded too early, brought on by the fast life she's led. She's more to be pitied than scolded. She needs to be loved, not despised. Too much beer and wine, too many
Too many parties, the wrong kind of crowd, ruined her happy young life. She's more to be pitied than scolded. She needs to be loved, not despised. Too much beer and wine, too many good times. The lure of a honky-tonk wrecked her young life. Too much beer and wine, too many good times. The lure of a honky-tonk wrecked her young life. Had to end it like the Stanleys to make it right.
Yes, sir.
We think we have a real fine show lined up for you today, and we certainly hope that you will enjoy all the folks we have on the show. I'm almost positive you're going to enjoy these two young fellows that I'm about to introduce to you. I think they're two of the finest country singers we have in America today. So let's give them a great big welcome right now. It's Ira and Charlie, the Louvin Brothers.
Last night, my dear, the rain was falling. I was too dead. Then I had a dream of you. I dreamed I was strolling in the evening underneath the harvest moon. I was thinking about you.
There's not a better country soul singer than Charlie Louvin, and added with that high part that Ira did, and his weird,
Now, he was
strange
another
harmony.
Jones when
Yeah.
it came to
You could never
switching and
predict.
never predict
Yeah.
what he would do.
I shook the hand of your stranger, but I was shaking more inside. I was still wondering who. Your arm was resting on his shoulder. You smiled at him, he smiled at you. His eyes were filled with victory. He said, my sister wants to marry. Then my heart was filled with ease. I knew that you would marry me.
Well, if it's worth singing, it's worth putting harmony on. You know, I've always believed that. I've been a solo act for 25 years, but at no time have I ever been just a total solo act. I've had one or two people in the group that sang harmony, and it truly makes life worth living if you can do a little harmony once in a while.
Well, I once knew a couple fellers near my old homestead, and I just wished that all the world had lived the way they did. They'd swap out work and lend each other money, mules, and plows, and I've seen them many times dividing milk from one old cow. Love thy neighbor as thyself, do unto him as you have him to do.
Like all the brother duets, the Louvins had their difficulties, and they split up a few years before Ira died in a car crash in 1963.
There was just something about him that wasn't consistent. What he thought today, he might not think tomorrow. What he found funny today, he wouldn't laugh at tomorrow. So it kind of put a bind, and if you came to see him, you didn't know where to say something funny to try to get him to laugh, or just wait a few minutes and see what the mood was that day. And that sometimes would cause a problem. Unfortunately, my brother never owned an educated mandolin. All of them would get out of tune, which proves that you can't teach a mandolin anything. But if it messed him up on stage, if it got out of tune, he would throw it ever how deep the stage was. He'd throw it to the back, then he'd run and get in the middle of it with his feet. And usually his part of the show was over at that time. After he got through kicking that mandolin around, he'd just go back to the dressing room, and me and the band would finish the show. Maybe he was on the edge of being a genius. Certainly, I think, one of the best songwriters in this century.
We need old-timey neighborhoods with hearts that's free of greed. God make us good old-fashioned folks who'll be a friend in need. If you want a friend, then be a friend. Do not throw charity slack, and do your deeds without a price. Someone will pay you back. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Do unto him as you have him do to you. Give him things that you can do without helping live. Love thy neighbor as thyself, and he will love you too. Love.
Sometimes he'd write a song and he'd come to my house and he'd say, I just wrote this song, let's see what it sounds like. He'd hand me a copy of the words and he'd have his mandolin and I'd get my guitar. I've never even heard the tune or anything else, but I watched him so close that I could tell pretty well what I was supposed to sound like. And so we'd go through it, and if it went awry, if it got messed up, well, he'd just wad it up, throw it in the trash, and say it probably wasn't no good anyway. So I'm sure that a lot of good songs went in the trash can, but if it didn't happen the first time, he didn't give it a second chance.
Here, Charlie and his friend Lamar Norris sing a song written by Ira just before he died.
I scarcely hear the wild wind cry, I feel its sudden blast. A greater storm just swept my world apart. Today you're with somebody new, my hopes are gone at last. Now stormy horizons in my heart. Rain swept and tattered like a rose in the wind. Stormy horizon without and within. You were all that mattered, but you wanted to be free. Now stormy horizons wait for me. Give us one, Bob. Of things as fragile and as sweet, roses' dreams are made, and dreams we had you held so carelessly. They fell like petals round my feet, I saw my rainbow fade. Now stormy horizons wait for me. Rain swept and tattered like a rose in the wind. Stormy horizon without and within. You were all that mattered, but you wanted to be free. Now stormy horizons wait for me.
You to tell me why you walk out on me. I'm so lonesome every day. I want you to know that since you walk out on me, nothing seems to be the same old way.
When I first heard the Everly Brothers, I thought I was listening to rock and roll. I wasn't. I was listening to pure country harmonies that were recorded right here in this legendary Nashville studio. In fact, the Everlys came from a long line of brother duets who'd been going for a good 30 years.
Think about the love that burns within my heart for you. The good times we had before you went away. Oh, me. Walk right to me this minute. Bring your love to me, don't send it. I'm so lonesome every day.
They patterned themselves after the Delmore style harmony. And Merle, he told me a long time afterwards, said the Everlys are just big Delmore Brothers fans. In fact, they've recorded Blues Stay Away From Me.
Woke up this morning, Lucille was not in sight. Asked my friends about her, all heard it's good time to Lucille. Please come back where you belong. I've been good to you, baby. Please don't leave me alone.
I think it was the times. You know, everybody was having trouble selling country music in 57 and 58 during that when rock and roll or rockabilly, whatever you want to call it, just really swept the entire country. And the same thing again happened in the late 60s when the Beatles became enormously popular here. You couldn't even get records pressed because all the pressing plants was pressing Beatle records for Capitol.
I got to hearing John and Paul singing duets and stuff, you know, and I got to saying, boy, it sounds like the Everlys. Boy, the Everlys sure sound like the Louvin Brothers. Boy, the Louvins sure sounded like the Monroe Brothers, and the Monroe Brothers sure sounded like the Blue Sky Boys, and the Delmore Brothers, and it goes all the way back, and you start really tracing all that back, and it comes right back to to the early 30s and 40s, and it's how the brothers duets started changing a little bit with age, and I think really that that the Everly Brothers did an awful lot to change the old style brothers harmony into something that was a lot more younger and more appealing to younger people.
Country music has changed, it's gone away and come back, and each time it goes away and it comes back stronger. I think there'll always be a country music as long as there's people who work for a living and get divorces and gets legs broken, wrecks, or anything that bad. I think there'll always be country music because that is the music that you can associate with.
Goodbye, lonesome. Hello, baby, doll. Goodbye, lonesome. You almost drove me wild. Well, you need electricity on the line. She done told me she was mine and all mine. Goodbye, you old lonesome. Hello, baby,
Hello, trouble, come on in. Well, you talk about heartaches, where in the world you been?
The brothers may have all split up by the 60s, but Buck Owens and Don Rich kept duet singing alive.
Hello, trouble, 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 welcome home.
When I first got acquainted with Don Rich, he was 16 years old. And then he was 32, of course, when he was killed on the motorcycle. And he and I had been, it had been just us when we were starting out in 1959 and 1960. We used to sleep in the car. All we had was an old car, and we'd travel around to these honky-tonks and play for them, you know.
Buck played lead guitar and taught Don Rich, from what I understand, how to play guitar to become his lead man in his band, because Don was a fiddle player when Buck met him.
The key to my heart, you hold in your
He was wonderful. And he played the fiddle and the guitar, and he's such a smiler. He had a great perpetual smile.
Together again, the gray skies are gone. You're back in my arms. Now where you belong.
Today, where he's still alive now, 15 years later, he would still be with me. He never wanted to go do anything else. He didn't mind making a few records, but I would say to him, you know, let me help you. I'll help you, you know. And but Don Rich's attitude was that he was where he wanted to be. You know, he just liked where he was.
The love that I knew,
You hold in your hand, and nothing else matters. We're together again.
I spent 1,000 miles of plumbing. Yeah, and I've worn blisters on my heels, trying to find me something better here on the streets of Bakersfield. You don't know me, but you don't like me. Take care, that's how I feel. How many of you that sit and judge me ever walk the streets of Bakersfield? You don't know me, but you don't like me. Take care, that's how I feel. How many of you that sit and judge me as we walk the streets of Bakersfield? How many of you that sit and judge me as we walk the streets of Bakersfield? All right. Thank you, Flacco. Thank you, bud. We're gonna hold. We're gonna hold on. We're gonna hold on to each other.
First of all, they had an absolute magic. The two of them are the best singers in the business. Then they were married. I think as a songwriter involved in the period of time they were together and had hits together, their lives together gave us a lot of opportunities to write some really good songs. Because if they were fighting, we'd write about that. And then if they were happy, it would be a song, though we didn't write it, about the jet set.
Or we're going to hold
or
on.
We're going to hold on, man. We're going to tough this sucker out and make it.
Time will tell if we're right or wrong. We know we're right by holding on, and the future is set for you and me, filled with love the way we both want it to be.
Yeah, I think the public lived our lives through our songs. I think they thought everything we recorded was how we felt at the time. Not necessarily the truth, but
right.
that's
but
how they...
But it sounded like the truth.
Right. That's how they thought that our life was going. If we were singing sad songs, Golden Ring, we were having problems. If we were singing happy songs, we were happy. Everything was fine with George and Tammy. So I think they felt like they were closer to us. They lived our lives through our music.
Step by step, we walk the road together. Hand in hand, up through more every day. When trouble came, we held on to each other, and any
mother's arms, we loved it away.
Well, it's very hard to go on stage in front of a lot of people and sing something happy, or sing something how much you love somebody, how much you depend on that person when there's problems in the situation in the family between the two of you. But then again, that's what you have to be professional enough to do that.
I also saw George and Tammy during a time when I know they was having problems, serious problems. And it was like you could feel it and you knew it, but it was like George was singing better than ever. He was singing.
It came across.
Yeah, he was singing
good.
more from his heart because he was hurting so inside, And Tammy was hurting so inside because they were living these songs they were singing.
I think they picked up on things being not exactly the way it should be, not perfect. If he was drinking or if things weren't the way they should be. But again, they loved him so much, and they loved us so much as a couple. I think they overlooked an awful lot of that just because they were there, the two of us were there, and two, again, there we're going back to what country music is. So many of Jones's fans think, oh, so he's drunk. I get drunk. It doesn't matter. He's just human like I am, and they accept it. So it's not that big a deal. They want him to. The only problem I think that his drinking really caused was when he just wouldn't show up.
They call me no-show John. They call me no-show John. Seldom ever wrong, seldom ever wrong. Stage is singing my song, but we're about to run on. They call him no-show John. They call me no-show Jones. Ain't that good?
I didn't know how to cope with it. Had I known anything about any of the programs, AA, NA, CA, any of the programs to help with alcohol and drug abuse, maybe I could have been able to have helped him. If not help him, maybe I could have been able to have maybe tolerated more. But as it was, I didn't know. I was ignorant to all those things, and I just didn't know how to handle it.
That's lonesome. Everyone knows Kenny is the gambler. Now, I didn't know that. How about Tammy? Tammy had some kind of excuse. She divorced George John. They call me no-show. They call me no-show John. Seldom ever wrong. Seldom ever wrong. Stage is singing my song. We're about to run on. They call him no-show John. They call me no-show John.
I think we're like Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. They don't want us to be separated. They don't want us to be apart. They want us as an item. I still have people yell out at me in the middle of my show after we've been divorced 14 years now. They still say, "Where's George?" Almost every night. I don't think there's a night goes by unless somebody asks, "Where's George?" or either, "Are you going to record with George again?" Something comes up about the duets that we had.
In a pawn shop in Chicago on a sunny summer day, a couple gazes in the wedding rings there on display. Golden rings.
When you are emotionally involved, let's say the Judds, let's say Tammy and Jones, let's say the Louvin Brothers. Obviously, brothers have to be emotionally involved. They're blood. They had to be emotionally involved. They were married. The Judds have to be emotionally involved. It's mother-daughter. It's blood. Whereas a Conway and Loretta, they're great friends, but they have no bond beyond a great friendship. So
Yeah,
I think
that's a
there'd
good
be
point.
less turmoil, or the likelihood of less turmoil, because they're good friends.
We've had many people to think, that Conway and I had a thing going, and which is far from the truth. And you don't mess in your nest, When you got a good thing going, you don't mess it up. And people with any brains would know that.
If you were mine to lose,
I'd gladly let you go,
just to know that you were mine to lose.
Conway's always real bashful. And we was sitting on the stage signing autographs, and this is right when we first started singing, and somebody kept come up to us and kept saying, "Are you all married?" He was a man. And he wouldn't hush. "Come on, you can tell me. I won't tell nobody." And we were signing autographs, and this was going on. Finally, I looked down and I said, "No, we're not married. We're just living together." Conway threw his pencil up in the air and took off, just blind. I embarrassed him to death.
I'd gladly let you go, just to know that you were mine to lose.
Oh, yeah.
Soap operas are, you know, watched by millions and millions because they fantasize of falling, that having that romantic feeling in their life, and somebody bringing them flowers and you know, being courted like they do on soap operas. So I think that in singing the duets on stage, they want to imagine that there's romantic feelings, and that when you're singing the songs that say "I love you," that you mean it. But there's also a double standard, because they want you to sort of play with the fire but don't get burned.
I called work this morning and I told them I was ill, but if they knew how good I really feel, they'd know I'm lying. They'd probably fire me.
You said you can't get out of bed. Well, I guess that's the truth. But the reason you can is 'cause I'm lying here with you. Yeah, I'm lying in love with you.
Lying in love with you. Today that's all I want to do.
Helen Cornelius and Jim Ed Brown started duetting as just good friends, and they became very successful.
All of a sudden, I was in a world where it was the fast lane of life. It was a new kind of life for me. It was people after me every minute. It was all kinds of attention. And it was people that loved to see him take a hold of my hand on stage. And they go, "Ah, you know, how romantic." They would purposely request the love songs. And it was almost like there was a gleam in their eye when they finally thought that maybe there were some real feelings between the two of us.
Lying in love with you. Today that's all I want to do. Won't hurt to tell a white lie or two when I'm lying in love with you.
I think, yes, my fingers got burned, yes. I was married. Jim Ed Brown was married. We were cast together in this duo. But then in the long run, the personal and the business became very, very difficult for both of us, because the duet grew so large, or so big in the public's eye, that the popularity of the duet totally overrode either individual effort. It was Jim Ed Brown's show. I was the little gal singer that came into the show.
Oh, is that right?
And then, after 12 #1 singles or top 5 singles, it was duo in equality, but it was still his show, and I was still the girl singer.
She could not be a headliner. She could appear on stage, sure, but as a headliner, you had to have a male, per se, to be the headliner.
I wanted to grow. He didn't want to lose control. He didn't really want me to grow. And I can understand him wanting to lose control. I can look back now and be so objective on the whole thing and say, I don't blame him.
I don't want to have to marry you. I don't want to have to say I do. I want our love to be free, the way God meant love to be.
I think that there were times, you know, of course, when there was a lot of anger present. You know, when maybe we'd had some bitter words and walked on stage, and I can remember those times very vividly, and I wouldn't even look at him when I was singing to him.
Oh, she was mad.
I was mad.
I don't want to have to marry you.
With the personal feelings being involved too, it ended up with, we just could not work together anymore. It ended up with a very bitter, hard split.
Women are very strong.
Yeah. Are they too
Women
strong?
Are they too strong? Oh, no. How can they be too strong? If men are willing to let them, take over, then more power to them.
Just because it be the thing to do.
Any relationship where there are two people working, both still trying to figure out who's going to divide the duties and who's going to be number one and who's going to be number two in making decisions.
I'm going to be number one. Helen is a very talented young lady, and she does a great job individually, but, that carries right on through to the duets. So it's been a great relationship there, and I've enjoyed singing with her.
Have I told you lately that I love you? Could I tell you once again somehow? Dear, have I told with all my heart and soul how I adore you? Well, darling, I'm telling you now.
There's a tear in my beer, 'cause I'm crying.
So, duetting has always been a difficult business. It seems the only way to avoid all that fussing and fighting is to make sure your partner can't answer back. Like here, where Hank Williams Jr. duets with Hank Williams Sr., who has been dead for 35 years.
You are on my lonely mind. I'm gonna keep drinking until I'm petrified. And then maybe these tears will leave my eyes. There's a tear in my beer, 'cause I'm crying.